Good evening, and in the quiet hum of a bedside fan, we're slipping to 1776 America to see what everyday life was really like across farms, small towns, and busy ports from New England to the South. Less fireworks than dishwater and ledger books, with most people fixed on work, family, and town rules, while talk of independence traveled through kitchens, markets, and meeting houses. The usual luxury, imported tea, could quietly mark you as the wrong kind of neighbor. If unwinding here helps you drift off, tap like and subscribe only if it truly helps, so these soft history nights find you again. Drop a quick note with where you're listening from, near or far, and what time it is there. Tonight is a small lantern held over an ordinary table, so dim the lights, unclench your jaw, and let your shoulders drop. Let the room fade to the edge as we reach for a plain latch in 1776. First light edges under the shutters of a low-ceiling room. A wooden clock ticks toward the day. The door holds a splintered wooden latch cool under your fingers. A trundle bed slides back under the larger frame near the small window. A mother rises first, or a father, or an older child who knows the drill. The banked hearth is coaxed to flame with tinder and breath. Steps creak on the loft ladder as small bodies find shoes. Water is fetched, animals fed, dough set to rise, all before the rooster bothers to crow. Milk is strained, ashes saved for soap, and the youngest carries chips for kindling. The room is simple on purpose. A wide hearth holds an iron crane and hooks. A table sits under the window. The bed is pushed back to clear floor for work. A chest keeps linen and tools. Pegs take coats and hats. A ladder rises to the loft. Its placement is a clock for the house. In many homes, a boarder sleeps near the fire in winter, and an apprentice rolls a blanket by the chest. Most mornings feel steady. Then the road brings talk. A neighbor steps in with mud on his boots. A peddler swaps pins for eggs and leaves a printed broadside. A rider clatters by with a folded newspaper for the tavern, and someone says there was a reading in town. Coffee is scarce, opinions are not. Even breakfast can carry a choice. Do you set a teacup, using leaves many now shun, or pour hot water over mint, and call it Liberty Tea? The gesture is small, but a cousin will notice, and the neighbor too. Some houses keep the old habit, some switch to show a stand. The town is a wagon rolling slow over ruts. It moves, but the ground decides speed. News reaches kitchens, sheds, and fields at different hours. A woman at the churn hears it secondhand. A boy at the pump hears it first from a rider, and a craftsman hears it late in the shop. Committees meet, and shopkeepers keep an eye on who buys what. Stand in the doorway and you can trace the day. Fire first for porridge, then bread, then washing water, table work in the cool, heavy chores after sunup, mending when light fades. The door faces well, yard and field. The hearth does the most, and its heat tells the time. Season bends the plan too, planting in spring and slaughter in the cold months, but the hearth still anchors the list. All of that starts here, in this tight room with its busy fire and plain table. Hold this first room in mind while we look closer at how it runs. A low lintel makes you duck as you step inside. The hearth gives a soft glow, and the floorboards give a small creak. A faint hearth crackle under a low mantel. Ceilings stay low to trap heat, and rafters carry tools, hemp line, or a drying twist of herbs. One room does most jobs in many houses, with a table, a bed, a cradle, and a spinning wheel sharing the same few feet of floor. Glass is dear in many places, so panes are small and shutters do their share. Morning starts with chores set by need and light. Kindling is stacked, ashes carried out, and coals coaxed awake with a breath and a stick. Doors are latched against animals in drafts. Wood smoke lingers near the ceiling. A rope bucket bumping a well's stone lip marks the water trip, and the rope feels rough in the hand. Household roles divide the work by age and ability. Small children gather chips and sort tinder. Older ones haul water, sweep, and shake the rug. The strongest split logs and haul them inside. Women and older girls usually tend the fire and cook. Men and older boys often chop wood or head out to fields and stock. In many towns and farms in the South, enslaved people did much of this labor under orders. Morning water is set aside for drinking, cooking, and a quick wash. The aim is simple: make heat, make light, and make the room safe before the day spreads. Work centers on the hearth and the table beside it. A cast iron or wrought iron cooking pot hangs from a trammel so it can be raised or lowered at will. Because water is hauled by hand, therefore tasks cluster near the hearth. Think of it like arranging your day around one wall outlet. A crane swings pots over flame, and a bake kettle or spider pan sits close for frying or baking. Steam slips up the chimney, and iron gives a small clink when the hook is moved. Spinning, mending, and washing prep often happen within arm's reach of that fire, and family members pull stools close to the heat. Multi-purpose rooms were the original open plan, minus the realtor smile. Shared beds tuck close to the warm wall to keep bodies and blankets warmer. A rope bed holds a tick stuffed with straw, and a trundle slides out at night and disappears by day. Pegged walls hold tools, cups, and coats, so the floor stays clear. Benches double as storage, and a high-backed settle can turn into a windbreak by the hearth. This setup saves steps and keeps work and rest tight to the hearth. It also asks for care, since a stray spark can catch a rug and chimney soot can build up and light. Chimneys get brushed, and a bucket of water or sand waits nearby. Ashes are carried outside to a safe patch, and lids or screens keep embers from popping into the room. Rules in the house set the next steps. A mother or aunt measures meal and mixes dough at the table. An older boy sets the trammel height or skims the kettle. A girl trims wicks and sets candles by the window. A grandfather scrapes the hearth and checks the flue with a pole. Neighbors may trade help if a back aches or a hand is needed. The space works as a small workshop, with tools hung in reach and jobs matched to who can do them. Bowls, knives, and paddles crowd the table while the pot warms for porridge. With the fire steady, the day moves toward dough, porridge, and preserving. A coarse loaf sits on the table, a little rough but solid. Knife taps a cutting board with steady rhythm. Steam lifts from a kettle. Steam beads the inside of a tin mug. The cooking corner holds one quiet aroma, a soft onion warm in the air. The staples are plain and sure. Households reach first for cornmeal, salt pork, seasonal vegetables, and preserved fruit. Morning might be mush or Johnny cakes. Noon leans on stew with greens or turnips when they come up. Supper could be bread, a slice of pork, or porridge sweetened with a spoon. Of last year's apples, people worry about bad water, so boiling for tea or porridge helps, and small beer or cider is common, because illness can creep in with spoilage or unboiled water. The work runs in a loop that feels steady. Someone shakes corn from the bin and starts grinding meal by hand, or sends a sack to the mill when the road is calm. A pot hangs where the fire is tame, and skimming a pot keeps broth from clouding. The oven is a tool, not a switch, so families save heat for one push tending a bake day when heat allows, and letting ash and coals do the slow jobs after. Because storage is limited and seasons rule, therefore preserving and timing meals matter. A cool cellar buys a week for roots and cabbages. Salt pulls water from pork and keeps it safe enough to hang. Beans sit in brine or vinegar. Apples slice thin and dry on strings, and berries turn into preserved fruit when sugar is on hand. Pickle jars line a shelf low to the floor. In warm months, pots bubble more and sit less. Think of the pantry like a capped data plan you budget carefully. Flavor followed season, not a recipe blog. Imports frame choices that turn social. Tea from overseas is loaded with politics in 1776. Many towns keep to boycotts, and neighbors pour Liberty tea made from raspberry leaves, sassafras, or mint. Coffee comes and goes with ships, so some roast barley or chicory. Sugar stirs another question. West Indian sugar feels tainted by taxes and trade fights, so families reach for maple sugar or honey when they can. Communities set norms around boycotts and substitutions for taxed imports, and people nod or frown according to the cup in your hand. A splash of imported tea can whisper loyalist. A brown cone of maple sugar can hint patriot. No one has to say much. The market stall can grow quiet, or a baker might keep you waiting longer. A simple sweet can mark you more than a speech. Timing keeps the kitchen calm. On humid days, a full bake heats the house too much, so bread waits for a cooler morning. In winter, everyone crowds the hearth and stacks tasks by the flame. A big earthen oven might be shared, with families taking turns by the hour. The best cooks stand not as artists, but as schedulers who read weather, wood, and appetite at once. Waste feels costly in a world of handwork. Fat from the pan becomes tomorrow's fry. Bones turn into broth. Crumbs feed hens. A spoiled crock can mean a thin week. The margin is small, and the clock is a ladle lifted, not a bell rung. All of this wears on cloth. Aprons take splashes of grease and soot. Sleeves roll to the elbow to stir and lift. Wool skirts pin back from the hearth, and linen cuffs gray at the edge. Boys carry kindling and catch sparks on rough shirts. Women mend where the strings of a kettle have rubbed a shoulder, and scrub where smoke has kissed a bodice. When the board is wiped and the last pot cools, the work does not end so much as it changes. Aprons wipe and sleeves roll down. Cloth takes the next shift. A peg rail along a plain wall holds a shirt, a wool skirt, 2 aprons. A low stool waits beside a mending basket. Thread squeaks through thick linen. A hand finds the rough edge of a torn hem and sets 3 small stitches, then 3 more, steady as a clock. Linen and wool do most of the work in 1776. Flax is pulled, retted, and spun at home, then woven into strong sheets for shifts, shirts, and sacks. Sheep feed families with fleece that gets carded, spun, and woven into warm cloth for gowns and coats. Small looms sit in kitchens or barn corners. A traveling weaver might finish a bolt on his larger frame when the house's work slows. Buying new is rare, and shops are thin on the ground. Repairs outpace shopping by a mile because fabric is labor-heavy and costly. Therefore, mending and reusing are normal. Your wardrobe is more like a toolkit than a fashion feed. One dress or coat pulls duty for workdays, another for Sunday or court day, and the work one gets patched, turned, and pieced. A wooden chest lid thumps shut after the better things go away from smoke and sun. Pins matter more than you think, since many garments fasten with them, and pins can be scarce enough to count out, lend, and retrieve. Bright dyes run on the same short leash. Indigo and cochineal cost more and can be hard to import in a war year, so many settle for walnut brown, muddy blue, or faded madder. Silk ribbon, neat buckles, and fine buttons come in on ships, then vanish in a price spike. Scarcity of pins, dyes, and imported notions is the trade-off that shapes style. Leather shoes ride close to the ground. Most are built on simple lasts, often straight. So, they fit either foot until the leather learns a side. Soles get pegged or stitched again and again. A cobbler patches uppers, adds a half sole, or replaces a heel, and he trains an apprentice to do each step clean. Tailors do the same with cloth. Boys, and sometimes girls, bind to a master for years, live in the household, and learn to measure, cut, and finish. Fast fashion moved at ox speed. Cloth still speaks while it endures. A fine linen shirt says the household has time and skill. Deep color hints at money or access to a merchant. Plain shades in simple cuts can mark belief, as in a quiet Quaker meeting. Town laws once tried to sort dress by rank, but custom does that work now. Most people choose sturdy seams and serviceable wool before a showy trim, and the patch that keeps a sleeve going wins. That tug on the needle ties homes to a wider world. Tailors, mantua makers, weavers, fullers, dyers, and cordwainers all stand behind the hook on that wall. Their shops and sheds run on the apprenticeship system, and their hands turn raw, flax, fleece, and hide into the gear of a day's labor. Step from the mending stool to the workshop and the field. Take one slow breath in if it helps. Let a longer breath out. Let your shoulders loosen. A warm hearth, a plain meal, and sturdy cloth are your anchors. A spoon rests on a folded napkin. The air's easy, the light soft. Ordinary effort carried most days, not big scenes. Because the chores came in steady order, therefore the day held together. Hands moved through tasks with a calm pace. Footsteps hush over swept boards. The sound fades to nothing. The room settles again. Small routines made the day workable. Simple food, steady heat, and durable clothing kept bodies fed, warm, and covered. Quiet habits stood up to long hours. Work waits beyond the doorway, in fields and at benches. Tasks pass between family and neighbors with shared hands and steady aims. Open the door when you're ready. The lane and the workshop are waiting. Hammer rings from a forge at the edge of town as a cart rolls past the last fences. Coal smoke bites faintly in the air. Grain chaff pricks at your wrist. Farmers rise before light. A plow cuts the field in long lines. Oxen lean and snort, and hoes follow the seeds. Women manage dairies, gardens, and spinning. Children fetch water, pick stones, and carry kindling. The boss was usually weather. Rains halt cutting and muddy the road. Heat slows the team and sours milk. There was injury risk and lost time from tool mishaps or weather. Artisans shape towns into something that works. A blacksmith swings over forge tools, fixing hinges and shoeing horses. A carpenter guides a handsaw through pine boards. A cooper bends staves around a glowing iron hoop. A weaver works simple looms in a back room, cloth rising inch by inch. Shopkeepers tally weights, measure yardage, and swap coin or credit in small ledgers. They bridge farm goods and imports and set the pace of buying and selling. Sailors crowd the wharves and river landings. Lines creak as canvas goes up and barrels roll to the hold. Pilots read tides and shoals, then thread a ship into open water. Day workers wait for hire by the dock, at the market, or near a yard gate. They load, dig, cart, and sweep, then hunt the next task when the bell stops. Pay depends on wind and tide, and on who knows your name when work is thin. Apprentices start young and learn by doing. Apprenticeship contracts set years of service, with food, a bed, and training promised, and obedience required. A boy or girl files iron, stirs glue, or cards wool, then moves up to measure, mark, and fit. Parents or guardians sign in front of neighbors, and masters hold the papers. Some finish with a trade and a small kit, ready to rent a bench or open a stall. Enslaved laborers work under plantation labor systems. Field hands hoe and harvest in gangs from sunup. Skilled enslaved workers forge, saw, or weave under orders. Coercion and law fix the rules, and choice over time or pay is not theirs. Town and country keep each other running. Think of trades like different apps that don't run without each other. Because land, seasons, and skill dictate tasks. Therefore, each role fits a tight routine. Farmers need smiths for nails and shoes. Smiths need farmers for feed and charcoal. Shipyards need lumber, tar, and hands. A spinner needs wool and time, and a merchant needs goods to sell, credit to extend, and customers who trust her scales. The system has many hands and many levers. Output grows from teamwork and from pressure. Neighbors swap labor at harvest and barn raisings, and crews share tools on the dock. Overseers press bodies into longer rows, and masters lock in futures with paper. Skill and access define paths ahead, whether you gain a full shop, rent a space by the day, or see your work directed by others. A steady hand with a saw helps, and so does knowing a buyer or a lender. Being barred from land or schooling shuts doors that effort alone cannot open. Roads, ferries, and carriers stitch all this work together. Wagons haul grain to mills, nails to farms, and letters to counters tacked near a shop door. Post riders spread prices, orders, and talk, which pulls hands and goods into motion. Follow the wagon ruts and posted notices to the next crossroads. Mud ruts cut a narrow lane. A rider leans forward and passes, hooves thudding in a steady beat, while a ferry bell clinks from the river. Post riders carry leather pouches along the post road that ties Boston to New York, Philadelphia, and the South. A stage wagon rolls the same route with freight and a few passengers, slower but steadier. Bags get swapped at courthouses and taverns, with clerks noting times in neat hands. Delay is common. A horse goes lame. An axle snaps. A pouch falls out in a rainstorm, and a letter turns to paste. Lost post is a quiet fact everyone knows, so important news often rides with a trusted hand, not just a seal. Ferries and coastal sloops knit the shore town by town when roads turn to soup. A ferry rope hums under strain as the current tugs. A sloop hugs the coast with barrels, letters, and a few hopeful travelers, faster on a fair wind than any road. Fog and squalls stop them cold. Winter ice shuts crossings or traps them midstream because roads are rough and weather rules travel. Therefore, news arrives unevenly and late. Taverns serve as newsrooms and post stops as much as they serve ale. The bar keeps a nail for notices and broadsides, and a long table for strangers who may become friends over a shared bowl and a story. Customs are simple. You buy a drink if you sit. You give space when the mail opens. You listen when a traveler reads a fresh paper aloud, or you take a corner and sound out the small type yourself. The peddler shares an item for the room. The drover repeats a rumor from the last ferry. The algorithm was the barkeep. It's like a group chat with patchy signal and delayed notifications. Printers turn out thin newspapers weekly or twice a week, built from handset type and ink rolled on with care. Editors trade papers up and down the coast, then reprint speeches, letters, and shipping lists to fill their columns, which is why a Boston argument can land in Charleston a fortnight later. Advertising pays many of the bills, from runaway notices to land for sale to tea by the chest. Press day is noisy. The press creaks. Newspaper sheets snap in a draft. When news is urgent, a printer runs a broadside, a single sheet for quick posting on a door. Sermons also go to print when a preacher stakes a claim on a public question. The printed word travels, but the spoken word rides with it. So gossip, broadsides, and sermons shape opinions as much as letters. Risk hangs over every mile. Riders watch the sky and look for dry fords. Wagons favor higher ground and still sink to the hubs after a hard rain. Ferries wait out gusts. Sloops sit becalmed. A bag goes missing between stops, and no one can prove where. Families learn to hold two stories at once until a second paper arrives, or a third traveler confirms it, or a Sunday sermon lines it up with a moral. Payment keeps the whole network alive. Postage is often due on delivery, so a letter costs you at the door. A tavern tab runs on a slate behind the bar, wiped clean when you bring coins or goods worth the mark. A ferry takes a toll per person and horse, a small price, unless the river is high. A stage wagon sells seats by the mile, with extra for a trunk. People pay in Spanish dollars, coppers, colonial paper, or a favor redeemed at harvest. A printer takes subscriptions in coin, and sometimes in wheat, or rags for paper, if times are tight. All of it moves value so that words can move people. Now step from the crossroads into the market square and the counting room. Scales balance. A tally chalks. Voices bargain low. The air smells of salted fish. The counter's edge feels worn smooth. Chalk dust dries on a slate. A woman slides a dozen eggs forward. The shopkeeper weighs a small bundle of nails and trims a lump of sugar. Payment moves by inches, not by flash. A Spanish dollar sits by a British halfpenny. Mixed coin fills the drawer. Paper notes lie folded under a cup, signed by a colony or the Congress, worth today what neighbors agree. A coin clinks against a wooden till. Barter steps in where coin runs thin, so butter can cover a spool of thread, and a morning of hauling wood can settle last week's tea. Tabs run along the counter edge, each name its own little story. IOUs trade hands like small promises. Because hard coin is scarce and trust is local, therefore credit and custom carry transactions. Tally marks at the counter stand in for ink and seals. Think of it like a neighborhood buy-sell group with strict moderators. Fine print often lived in someone's memory. A handshake and two witnesses can be as strong as wax. Town meetings, parish oversight, and local courts draw the lines. They set weights and measures, so a pound is a pound. License taverns, post fair prices and shortages, and call out corner cutters. Constables carry writs from door to door. Selectmen or vestrymen assign roadwork and poor relief. At home, household rules have legal weight. Fathers, masters, and mistresses approve apprenticeships, enforce curfews, and mind property. Indentures spell duties in plain terms, and broken terms can bring court days. Enslaved people live under harsh codes and patrols, the most controlled part of this order. Storekeepers prefer coin, but take wheat, hides, or a day's labor on account. Month totals slide into the next, and a discount for coin can punish a payer who brings only goods. People talk about debt traps and loss of goods as consequences when accounts go bad. A court judgment can send the sheriff to lift a cow, a blanket, or treasured tools. Neighbors watch the auction and note who helped and who bid low. Reputation is capital. Broken promises cost more than fees. Paper notes move faster as 1776 rolls on, yet each slip has a shadow. Prices shift. Rumors about counterfeit plates chase through the market like a gust at noon. Shopkeepers hedge with mixed coin and with short terms. Wary buyers ask what the paper will fetch in Boston versus Philadelphia. The safest path still runs through a face people know and a voice that keeps its word. Orders from committees of safety sit beside price lists. Boycott rules and loyalty oaths press the edges of trade. Soldiers drift through and ask for beef, hay, or a quick shoeing of a horse, sometimes with tickets that promise later pay. Smallpox touches the ports, so quarantine signs hang and travelers get eyed at ferries. A quiet bargain can flare if buyer and seller back different flags, and even a loan can smell like politics. The market keeps humming, but ears stay sharp. From the market's murmur, listen for the year's sharper edge. Take a slow inhale through your nose. Let the exhale be longer and smooth. A ledger closes with a soft thud. The columns rest, and the shopkeeper trusts the numbers until morning. A door is latched and the bar finds its notch. Footsteps fade on the packed road. A shutter clicks against a latch once. A folded broadside waits by the tavern door. The words came by rider or ship, by pulpit or porch talk. Neighbors weighed the message against the mouth that carried it. Because letters could be late or wrong, therefore people leaned on faces they knew. Think of it like a group chat that only pings when someone rides in from the next town. A mother sets aside a spoon of sugar for morning tea. A farmer counts nails for the fence and saves too. Most choices stay small, even with big news in the air. Families ask simple things. Which path is drier? Which candle to spare? Who can loan a cart tomorrow? A cool draft slides across the floor and lifts the edge of a rag rug. The banked hearth gives a soft breath. Then the house holds still. Your brow can soften now. Let your tongue rest from the roof of your mouth. The clock tick returns, steady and low. A patrol of soldiers passes the crossroads, hungry and polite by orders. Families keep candles low and talk even lower. A cough in one house makes others shift their chairs a little apart. Because soldiers need hay and fevers travel in close rooms, therefore homes hold a careful distance and courtesy at once. Most try for a safe middle, neither loud for the crown nor loud for Congress. Quick to share water, but slow to pin a cockade. Now, ease the window open to the uneasy street below. Boots pass the step as a cart halts by the door. A door pin rests against worn paint. Leather creaks as a strap is tightened. The men move on, and the lane settles. Militia musters draw men to the green with a drum's flat thud and quick count. Local captains check flints, set watches, and drill the loading steps. Supply requisitions arrive from committees or army agents for flour, salt, blankets, wagons, powder, and lead. Families weigh what to hand over, hoping for a receipt, since the war knocks at the pantry before it reaches the gate. Quartering pressures follow the roads, so taverns fill, barns take pallets, and a spare bed sometimes becomes a soldier's for a night. Billeting rules say use inns first, yet a knock at the wrong door still happens on a wet evening. Neighbors pick sides quietly at first. A shopkeeper keeps a small portrait of the king in a back room, while his cousin drills with the rebels. Quaker meetings preach peace, and face fines or suspicions. Enslaved people hear rumors that armies promise freedom and judge risk against hope. Town committees of safety listen to talk, post notices at the courthouse, and question oaths. Goods can be seized, accounts frozen, or a man can find himself avoided at market. Everyone suddenly liked privacy. Smallpox hospitals sit on the edge of some towns with fences and a watch. Families choose inoculation weeks and keep apart while the planned fever runs mild, if they are lucky. Neighbors argue over customs, fees, and timing, and ministers send letters for or against. Towns post travel rules, and some ferries turn away those fresh from a pest house. Army camps worry over outbreaks and close roads when news is bad. Because war strains supplies and trust. Therefore, homes adjust quietly and watchfully. It's like living next to a long construction project that never fully stops. Choices carry price tags you cannot fold into a pocket if you open your parlor to billeted men. A Tory uncle may stop visiting, and a patriot neighbor may start watching. If you refuse to take continental paper for your wheat, a committee might label you unfriendly. If you inoculate early, your shop closes for a fortnight and customers drift to a rival. The risk is less a headline and more a slow squeeze, with suspicion first, then confiscation of a keg or a cart, and finally, social isolation. A reputation travels like smoke along the lane. Meeting house doors still open on Sunday, and benches fill with families who are tired but tidy. Children chase each other after the psalm. Someone passes a cup, and a fiddle plays a tune in a warm kitchen. A banked hearth breathes soft, and the wooden clock keeps its tick. Let the street dim. Turn back inside to the quieter half of life. A candle gutters at the edge of the table. A psalm fades in a neighbor's throat, while a fiddle tests a fresh tune outside the door. Tallow smoke hangs in the room, thin and animal sweet. Candle wax cools in a soft ridge. A floorboard ticks as it settles. Sabbath customs and community visiting norms shape the hours. In many towns, Sunday starts with a bell and a long walk to the meeting house. Families sit by rank or by pew tacks, and voices rise on simple psalms. In New England, work is put away and games kept quiet, while in the South, an Anglican parson might ride a circuit and hold service when he arrives. Quakers wait in a still room, Baptists sing with heat, and Catholics keep feast days where they can. After worship, neighbors trade bread, milk news of prices and weather, and head home before the light thins. Weeknights favor simple company. Light came from candles and tallow dips, and the banked hearth held the core of the house. Someone reads from a Bible, an almanac, or a thin newspaper, and the room leans in to catch each line. On autumn nights, a husking bee or an apple paring brings hands together. A fiddle keeps time as corn piles shrink and jokes move faster than the bow. A red ear might win a quick kiss, but a watchful aunt keeps the rules. In winter, quilting frames fill parlors and stories do the stitching. Work starts before the first gray, and animals do not wait for talk. Because light and labor bound the day, therefore, evenings favored quiet company and early sleep. Shutters close and wicks are pinched. Think of it as power-saving mode for the whole household. Nightlife had an early bedtime. Sleep is not a luxury, but a plan. Families share beds to keep warm, parents with a baby tucked near, or children arranged foot to foot. Travelers share at inns too, and take it as ordinary. A rope bedstead might need a tug before turning in, and a quilt is pulled high. The coals in the fireplace are raked and covered for a banked hearth, and a water bucket sits within reach. Fire hazard is a constant thought in wood houses with open flame. So ladders and hooks hang ready, and neighbors know who keeps watch. Towns often post a night watch, and watch turns pass through the year. A rattle or a staff marks the patrol, and the hour is called if fog sets in. Many households drift through two sleeps, with a waking in between for prayer, a quiet talk, or a check of the coals. Interrupted sleep comes for infant care, for a cow calving, or for a wind that pulls at the latch. Small rituals hold the dark together. A whispered psalm, a strip of linen laid over the cradle, a hand on the latch to feel it set. Shared blankets, watch turns, and simple rituals make rest possible. A quiet room gathers itself again, steady and plain. Let the candle dim and the clock carry you back. The plain door to 1776 eases shut and rests on its hinges. Your room holds steady quiet. The clock in the corner ticks in a slow, honest way. The air is still and kind. Everything is where you left it. The years sit quietly beside you. A wooden clock marking the hours is one small thing to keep. Its tick organized meals, chores, and talk, as simple as a heartbeat. You can almost feel that rhythm now. It kept time clear when days were long. Small things shape routines more than big speeches. Let it hover, light and clear. Hands at tubs, fields, benches, and stalls kept life moving. Neighbors traded help and news. Small tasks stacked into a day, like bricks in a low wall. Most days ran on habit. That steadiness carried families through change. Quiet work made room for hope. Give them a quiet nod in your mind. Take one slow breath in. Let your shoulders drop and stay. Let your jaw loosen and your hands rest. Feel the mattress hold you, calm and steady. Thank you for spending this evening here. It is a gentle thing to share time and curiosity. Your attention is a kind gift. If this helped you unwind, a soft like or a quiet subscribe is welcome. Only if it feels easy. It helps others find a calm corner too. May the night be calm and the morning unhurried. Sleep can do its gentle work now. Let your thoughts stack like folded linens, simple and light. Then let it all fade to the clock's tick and an easy silence.